To anyone watching, have you ever wondered what human skin tastes like? Well, you can ask Katherine Knight, aka the first Australian woman to be given a life sentence without parole. Katherine did not only kill her lover, she took things several steps further by cooking parts of his body, intending to feed them to his own children. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we will be looking at the case of Katherine Knight. Katherine was born on October 24th, 1955 in Tenterfield, New South Wales, Australia. And her family background was said to have been unconventional and a dysfunctional one. Before she was born, Katherine's mother, Barbara Thorley, had been the wife of Jack Rowan. The couple lived together in Aberdeen, New South Wales, Hunter Valley. Together they had 4 sons. For several years, the family of 6 lived together until Jack discovered that Barbara was having an affair with his friend and co-worker, Ken Knight. As a result of the local backlash that followed the adulterous pair, Barbara and Ken decided to leave Aberdeen for Moree. After the decision was made, Barbara's 2 eldest sons stayed with their father, while the 2 younger were sent to their aunt in Sydney. Later on, Barbara had 4 more children with Ken. 2 of the 4 girls were twin girls, born in Tenterfield in 1955, and Katherine happened to be one of the pair. 4 years later, Jack Rowan died. So his 2 eldest sons, who stayed back with him, had no choice but to move in with their mother, Barbara. Continuing their life with Ken Knight proved to be a nightmare for Barbara and her children because Ken was an alcoholic and he was often abusive and violent. He repeatedly took sexual advantage of his wife, Barbara, as many as 10 times a day. In turn, Barbara would recount the details of her sex life to her children and would often say that she hated men and sex. One time, Katherine reported to her that someone wanted to get sexual with her, and Barbara's response was that she put up with it and stopped complaining. In later interviews, Katherine claimed that male family members, apart from her dad, often assaulted her. According to her, the sexual crimes continued until she turned 11. Arguably, this may have been the reason Katherine didn't have close relationships with members of her family. Aside from her twin, the only person she was close to was her uncle Oscar Knight. Oscar was a champion horseman who didn't stick around for long because he committed suicide in 1969, leaving Katherine devastated. In the same year, Katherine and her family moved back to Aberdeen. When Katherine started high school, she began to keep to herself. Even worse, her classmates remembered her as a bully. Once, it was said that she injured a boy at school with a knife during lunch break. On another occasion, she was injured by a teacher who claimed to have been acting in self-defense. However, this was only one side of Katherine. When Katherine wasn't angry, she was reportedly described as a model student who often got rewarded for her appropriate behavior. Katherine left school at the age of 15 and got a job as a cutter in a cloth factory. At this time, she still didn't know how to read or write properly. She worked in the cloth factory for about a year before she left to get started on what she called her dream job. Katherine's dream job turned out to be tearing up offal at the Aberdeen abattoir. While she worked there, she eventually got promoted to boning, which earned her a set of professional butcher knives. Back at home, she hung these knives over her bed and said the reason was so that they would always be handy if she needed them. Katherine met her first husband, David Stanford Kellett, in 1973 in the local abattoir where she worked. The 2 were co-workers. David was a heavy drinker, a habit which was said to have stemmed from having witnessed his best friend die in a rail yard and later an accident involving a train and a school bus that claimed the life of 6 children. When David joined the Aberdeen abattoir, he became friends with Katherine's brother and eventually Katherine. She would often intervene and back him up in his fights. At the time, it was no news in Aberdeen that Katherine physically threatened anyone who made her upset. Katherine and David got married in 1974, reportedly per Katherine's request. On the day they were supposed to get married, David said that Katherine's mother, Barbara, who had walked up to him and told him, "You better watch this one or she'll kill you. Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you're Don't ever think of playing up on her. She'll kill you. She's got a screw loose somewhere." David may not have taken that piece of advice seriously because he followed through with his marriage to Katherine. On their wedding night, David woke up to Katherine trying to strangle him. Katherine's reason was that he shouldn't have fallen asleep after only 3 rounds of sex. On another occasion, David woke up to Katherine's knees on his chest with a butcher knife pressed to his neck, asking him if he had other women on the side. In this situation, Katherine only let David go because he said he wasn't cheating. The marriage between the two continually proved to be increasingly violent. One evening in 1976, David was out at a darts tournament with his friends and got home late as a result. When he returned home, he saw that Katherine, heavily pregnant at the time, had burnt all of his clothes and shoes. She then took a frying pan and hit him on the back of his head. Scared for his life, David ran out of the apartment and into the home of a neighbor who called 911 after he collapsed. The test results showed that David had suffered a fractured skull and needed treatment. The police wanted to press charges, but Katherine talked David into dropping them. In 1976, their first child, Melissa Ann, was born. Shortly after that, David fled to Queensland with another woman after deciding that he couldn't take any more of Katherine's abuse. David didn't leave an address, so Katherine didn't have many options when it came to searching for him. The day after David ran away, Katherine was seen walking down the main street, pushing her baby in a stroller. Due to how violently she pushed the stroller, she was reported and admitted to St. Elmo's Hospital in Tamworth. Her diagnosis reports came back that she was suffering from postpartum depression. It took Katherine a couple of weeks to recover, and when she did, she went back to home with her child. Again, she put Melissa in a stroller and this time left her on a railway line. She then stole an axe and went about threatening people that she would kill them. Luckily, a forager known as Old Ted found Melissa and saved her just minutes before a train passed. This led to Katherine's arrest and a second hospitalization at St. Elmo's Hospital. While it seemed like Katherine was finally getting the help many would agree she needed, that wasn't the case because the next day, Katherine was allowed to sign herself out after an oddly quick recovery. Choosing to process the pain of David leaving her in a slightly different manner, Katherine made up her mind to go look for him. A few days after leaving the hospital, Katherine slashed the face of a co-worker in the Aberdeen abattoir. She threatened the woman to drive her to Queensland so she could find David. How she eventually found out about David's whereabouts, no one could say for certain. By the time they stopped at a service station, the woman had fled, and a few minutes later, the police showed up. When the police arrived, they saw that Katherine had already taken someone else hostage, a mechanic this time, and appeared to be threatening him with the same knife. The police were able to disarm her after attacking her with brooms. Following this incident, Katherine was admitted to the Morisset Psychiatric Hospital. At the hospital, she told the nurse that she had planned to kill the mechanic because he was responsible for repairing the car which David left him. She said that after she killed him, she would then kill David and his mother in Queensland. The police informed David of the incident, and ridden with guilt, he left his girlfriend and moved to Aberdeen with his mother to help Katherine. Katherine was released on August 9th, 1976, and along with David and her mother-in-law, the trio moved to Listwich. There, she started working at the Dinmore Meat Works. David stayed with Katherine, showing support and encouragement, and on March 6th, 1983, Katherine gave birth to their second daughter, Natasha Mayer. Clearly, things weren't as bad as they once were. Although David tried to help as much as he could, Katherine probably felt he wasn't doing enough because the following year, she moved back to Aberdeen with their daughters and later to a rented house in Muswell Brook. She went back to working at the Aberdeen abattoir before she suffered a back injury in 1985 and went on a disability pension. The government also gave her a housing commission residence in Aberdeen because she didn't need to rent an apartment close to the abattoir anymore. Amongst the things Katherine used in decorating her new residence were animal skins, skulls, machetes, rusted animal traps, horns, etc. It was said that she put these things up in every corner of her house. There was also a classic arrangement of placing her butcher knives over her bed. A year passed and Katherine met another man who later became her lover, a 38-year-old David Saunders. A few months after they met, Saunders moved in with Katherine and her daughters. Although they lived like a family, he still kept his former apartment. Katherine threw Saunders out on several occasions because she thought that if he wanted them to be a family, he wouldn't keep his old apartment. She thought that he was cheating, but she would oftentimes beg him to return. In May 1987, she slit the throat of his 8-month-old puppy right before him, saying that was a sample of what she would do if he ever cheated on her. Although depressing, the two stayed together for a couple more years. By June 1988, Katherine had a third daughter, Sarah. The last straw for Saunders was when Katherine hit him in the face with an iron and stabbed him in the abdomen with a pair of scissors. They had been having an argument before this. this. Fearing for his life, Saunders moved back to his old apartment, and when he came back, he saw that Katherine had destroyed his clothes. He took an extended leave from work and immediately went into hiding. Katherine tried looking for him, but no one admitted they knew where he was. Saunders returned months later to see his daughter, but found out that Katherine made the police issue an apprehended violence order against him. Not much was heard from Saunders after that incident. But soon after, Katherine found another lover, John Chillingworth. Although there's no precise date as to when they met, Katherine became pregnant by Chillingworth in 1997. John was 43 years old and used to work at the Aberdeen abattoir with Katherine. The following year, she gave birth to a boy, Eric. However, Chillingworth soon broke up with Katherine after he found out that she was having an affair with another man, John Price. Katherine decided to move in with Price after Chillingworth broke up with her. He used to work in the local mines and had 2 children from his first marriage. Initially, his children liked Katherine, but things began to take a different turn shortly afterward. In 1998, Katherine had an argument with Price because he refused to marry her. To make him pay, she sent a video of items he reportedly stole from work to Price's boss. Price tried explaining to his boss that the items were out of date and that he didn't steal them but picked them out of the company dumpster. He was fired from his job regardless. Reports claimed that he had been working there for 17 years prior to the incident. In anger, Price kicked Katherine out of his house that same day. However, some months later, they restarted their relationship, with Katherine staying at her place this time. Price's friends were so livid about this, so most of them stopped associating with him. As the relationship progressed, fights between Katherine and Price became more frequent. So much so that Price would often show up at work with cuts and bruises. Eventually, Katherine found her way back to his house, and they lived together for a while. In February 2000, Price kicked Katherine out again after she stabbed him in the chest. Later that month, Price stopped at the Scone Magistrates Court to take out a restraining order against Katherine. Later in the day, he told his friends at work that if he didn't show up the following day, it would be because Katherine had killed him. His friends pleaded with him to not return home, but he refused, saying she could kill his children if he didn't. When Price got home, he learned that Katherine had sent the children to a friend's house for a sleepover. He stayed with his neighbor for a while before going to sleep at 11 p.m. Later on, Katherine came into the house, watched some television for some minutes, took a shower, and went to see Price, wearing a new black lingerie that she had bought. The two had sex, and Price fell asleep. A successful night? The next morning at 6 a.m., Price's neighbor became worried, seeing that his car was still in the driveway. His employer also sent a worker to find out if something was wrong. The two tried knocking on Price's bedroom window but got no response, so they decided to try the front door. There, they found blood and decided to call the police. The police arrived at 8 a.m. and also tried the back door. They found Price's body hanging in the hallway with his skin stripped off and blood dripping. They also found Katherine in a coma from an overdose. According to the blood evidence, it was said that when Katherine attacked Price, he woke up and tried turning on the light in a bid to escape, with Katherine hot on his trail. He opened the front door, but he didn't make it out and was dragged back into the hallway. There, he died after having lost too much blood. Autopsy results revealed that Price had been stabbed at least 37 times, both in front and behind, with most of the knife wounds hitting vital organs. After Katherine killed Price, she decapitated and cooked parts of his body in a baked potato, pumpkin, beetroot, etc., intending to serve them to his children. Price's head was found inside a pot of vegetables. Katherine also draped Price's left arm over an empty bottle of soft drinks, with his legs crossed in a posture that resembled one of his photos. Beside his flesh was a handwritten note which read, "Time got you back, Jonathan, for raping my daughter. You, to Beck, Price's daughter, for Ross, for little John, his son. Now play with the little John's dick, John Price." Katherine's trial was scheduled to be held on July 23, 2001, but was later adjourned to October 15, 2001 because her counsel was ill. Initially, Katherine refused to plead guilty, claiming that she didn't remember what happened after she had sex with Price that night. But she soon realized that the authorities had substantial evidence, and the court wasn't buying her claim of amnesia and disassociation. On November 8, 2001, Katherine was sentenced to life imprisonment with no chance of parole, as her papers were marked never to be released. Katherine appealed the life sentence in June 2006, but her appeal was dismissed on the grounds that she committed a very atrocious crime. Katherine is presently incarcerated at Clarence Correctional Center. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the case of Katherine Knight, and why don't you go ahead and click on one of the 2 videos on your screen for another one of our videos.